Okay, another way to gather fabric in the round, I'm going to do a wide zigzag, and I'm going to keep a running line in my zigzag stitch, so that way I can just pull it as I stitch to gather as I sew. This is another way that I find useful in some ways and not useful in others, so it just depends on what you're doing. With a right now I'm working on blooming breeches, and typically I don't do this method for them just because I enjoy doing my serger a lot better. It's just faster and easier, and it produces a more even gather. This produces a messier gather, but it's a lot faster. So if you have something that doesn't need like a really neat gathering all the way along a long edge, you just need something that's short or easy to do, this is a good method for that. So I'm going to set my stitches to a wide zigzag. And then you can also do a long zigzag. It doesn't have to be a short stitch, it can be a longer stitch. So I usually just set it to the widest I can and the longest I can. And I'm just going to over exaggerate a little bit here so you can see what I'm doing, hopefully. Now I have the bottom of my dress skirt, or the top of my dress skirt. What I'm going to do is if you can see in here, the green thread is my needle thread right here, and then I have the white thread as my bobbin thread. And so I'm going to pull my needle thread on top. I'm going to put my fabric in there, and I'm going to put my foot down. I'm going to do a stitch or two, back stitch a little bit, make sure my bobbin thread is going to the back. I don't know where it is, so hopefully it's in the back. And then my running thread, I'm going to take a good portion of it. I want it to go all the way around the dress skirt, or as long as I need to. So if you need to pull some extra, you can. And then I'm going to zigzag over the top of that thread. So I'm going to hold it as I stitch and make sure that I'm not catching the stitch or catching the thread, but I'm actually going over the top of the thread here. Now there's two ways to do this. You can just let the thread feed through with the fabric, or after you go a little ways, it's always harder to pay attention to what I'm doing while I'm talking too. So it's not going to be straight. So the other thing you can do is you can see that I've just kind of fed it through. I have shadows everywhere, sorry. Fed it through the back. If I pull on this, it's going to gather that back there. So I can actually gather while I'm stitching, which is, it's great for some things. So I'm just going to keep stitching all the way around here. Now instead of feeding this through, I'm just hanging on to it. I'm not even letting it go anywhere, and you can see that that is actually gathering it really well. If I didn't want to do that, I could just loosen it up, or I can pull it in. So you can see that that just has a nice loose gather. I'm going to keep going. Ignore my wonky stitching. I don't think I did my thread long enough anyway, so I'll have to pull this up, which isn't a big deal, but I want you guys to see what it's like. I'm going all the way around. Almost there. See, there's my end right there, so I don't think I grabbed enough thread at the beginning, which is fine. Just remember that while you're doing this, if you need it for a bigger project, you need to make sure that your thread tail is long enough to go all the way around. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to gather the whole thing. Okay, so I'm getting to the end. And I'm just going to back stitch a little bit there. And then pull it out, cut my threads, and then there's my running thread right there. And you can see that I can pull it tighter. This is great if you're doing a lot of gathers, but if you need something that needs to be gathered evenly, it doesn't, unless you're doing really, really tight gathers, it's not going to gather evenly and it's going to move around while you stitch. So that's just one thing to keep in mind if you're going to do this method. It works really great, but for different fabrics, it's something that works good for some things and not for others. So that's that. And if you just fed your thread through and waited till the end, so you just have it so that it's not gathered over here, it just, you had a long enough thread and you fed it all the way through, all you have to do is just pull it at the end and it pulls really easily. So it's a really quick and easy way to gather, but it doesn't always produce a very even gathering once you stitch it on, because this does move. It moves back and forth a whole lot, so just something to keep in mind. So there's that. And then if you're satisfied with the length that you have it, always double check your length. This obviously is way too small for what I need to do. My Bloom & Britches bodice panel here, that's what I need. My camera is not going to show you, but I definitely did that way too small, and I don't have enough thread to make up for it. So I could either tie a piece here and then just use this, or I can do a different way, which I'll probably do a different way, but I wanted to show you guys this method anyways. So there is that. You just tie this off when you're all done, and then it will stay where you want it to stay. I'll tie it real quick so you can see. If you are doing it in the round, even if you're not doing it in the round, if you just tie it off with your end threads, then it's not going to come undone, but then you can work around with it a little bit more. If you do this, use lots of pins, because it moves very easily. So as soon as you start stitching on that, it's going to catch on things and it's going to move. So just something to keep in mind. All right, there you go.